Measuring water pollution. In India, the Central Pollution Control Board (CPCB), an apex body in the field of water quality management, has developed the concept of designated best use. The quality is measured on the basis of pH, dissolved oxygen, mg, 1 bar or cod, total coliform, mpn, 100 ml, free ammonia mg/L, electrical conductivity etc. Presence of organic and inorganic wastes in water decreases the dissolved oxygen content of the water. Water having DO content below 8.0 mg per liter may be considered as contaminated. Water having DO content below 4.0 mg per liter is considered to be highly polluted. BOD, biological oxygen demand. BOD is a measure of the amount of oxygen that require for the bacteria to degrade the organic components present in water, wastewater. It is expressed in milligrams of oxygen per liter of water. The higher value of BOD indicates low DO content of water, since BOD is limited to biodegradable materials. Therefore, it is not a reliable method of measuring pollution load in water. COD, chemical oxygen demand. Chemical oxygen demand (COD) is a slightly better mode used to measure pollution load in water. COD measures the amount of oxygen in parts per million required to oxidize organic, biodegradable and non-biodegradable, and oxidizable inorganic compounds in the water sample. BOD-COD ratio is a measure of food value. If the ratio is higher, it has higher food and less toxicity. COD is higher than BOD. Question 4. Q. Which of the following can be found as pollutants in the drinking water in some parts of India? 2013. 1. Arsenic. 2. Sorbitol. 3. Fluoride. 4. Formaldehyde. 5. Uranium. Select the correct answer using the codes given below. 1 and 3 only, B. 2. 4 and 5 only, C. 1. 3 and 5 only, D. 1. 2, 3, 4 and 5 answer, C. Question 5. Q. Biological oxygen demand (BOD) is a standard criterion for measuring oxygen levels in blood. B. Computing oxygen levels in forest ecosystems. C. Pollution in aquatic ecosystems. D. Assessing oxygen levels in high altitude regions. Answer, C. Question 6. Q. There is a concern over the increase in harmful algal blooms in the seawaters of India. What could be the causative factors for this phenomenon? 2011. 1. Discharge of nutrients from the estuaries. 2. Runoff from the land during the monsoon. 3. Upwelling in the seas. Select the correct answer from the codes given below. 1 only. B. 1 and 2 only. C. 2 and 3 only. D. 1, 2 and 3. Answer, D. Question 7. Q. Estuaries possess distinct blooms of excessive growth of pigmented dinoflagellates. These blooms are recalled 1998. Red tides, B. Sea tides, C. Black tides, D. Sea flowers. Answer, A. So now you must have understood that pollution is one of the gravest issues of the environment and it can take various forms. In this section we have learned about air and water pollution. In addition to that, there are some other types as well. Let's just take a look at them and see what kinds of questions have been asked in previous year UPSC prelims. We will also learn about the management techniques related to them and try to solve the questions that have been asked in their context. Soil pollution. Soil pollution is defined as the presence of toxic chemicals, pollutants or contaminants in soil in high enough concentrations to pose a risk to human health and or the ecosystem. The main reason why the soil becomes contaminated is due to the presence of man-made waste. These wastes include air waste, radioactive waste from nuclear plants, biomedical waste, any waste which is generated during the diagnosis, treatment or immunization of human beings or animals or in research activities pertaining thereto or in the production or testing of biologicals. And inorganic waste discharged from factories and industries. It can be biodegradable or non-biodegradable waste. There are two main ways to manage waste, i.e. bioremediation and phytoremediation. The bacterium Deinococcus radiodurans has been used to detoxify toluene and ionic mercury which are released from radioactive nuclear waste. AWASTE. Electronic waste, or A-waste, is a term for electronic products that have become unwanted, obsolete, and have reached the end of their useful life. It refers to all items of electrical and electronic equipment A and its parts that have been discarded by its owner as waste without the intent of reuse. Major chemicals released include arsenic, blackfoot disease, barium, cadmium, Itaitai disease, cobalt, lead, mercury, Minamata disease, PCBs, silver, beryllium, plastic, chromium, brominated flame, etc. Waste management techniques. Bioremediation. Bioremediation is the use of microorganisms, bacteria and fungi to degrade the environmental contaminants into less toxic forms. The microorganisms may be indigenous to a contaminated area in situ or they may be isolated from elsewhere and brought to the contaminated site ex situ. Advantages of bioremediation. Bioremediation is a natural process. It is cost effective. Toxic chemicals are destroyed or removed from environment and not just merely separated. Low capital expenditure. Less energy is required as compared to other technologies, less manual supervision. Disadvantages of bioremediation. The process of bioremediation is slow. Heavy metals are not removed. For in situ bioremediation site must have soil with high permeability. It does not remove all quantities of contaminants. Substantial gaps exist in the understanding of microbial ecology, physiology and genetic expression. And site expression and site engineering. A stronger scientific base is required for rational designing of process and success. In situ bioremediation. Bioventing. Supply of air and nutrients through wells to contaminated soil to stimulate the growth of indigenous bacteria. It is used for simple hydrocarbons and can be used where the contamination is deep under the surface. Biosparging. Injection of air and pressure below the water table to increase groundwater oxygen concentrations and enhance the rate of biological degradation of contaminants by naturally occurring bacteria. Bioaugmentation. Microorganisms are imported to a contaminated site to enhance degradation process. Ex situ bioremediation. Land farming. Contaminated soil is excavated and spread over a prepared bed and periodically tilled until pollutants are degraded. The goal is to stimulate indigenous biodegradable microorganisms and facilitate their aerobic degradation of contaminants. Composting. Combing contaminated soil with organic amendments like manure for faster decay. Biopiles. It is a hybrid of land farming and composting. Essentially, engineered cells are constructed as aerated composted piles, typically used for treatment of surface contamination with petroleum hydrocarbons. Bioreactors. Soil and water are pumped up from a contaminated plume and processed through an engineered system. Degradation here is faster due to controlled conditions. Phytomediation. Phytomediation is use of plants to remove contaminants from soil and water. Natural phytomediation is carried out by mangroves, estuarine vegetation and other wetland vegetation. It is a low-cost, solar energy-driven cleanup technique. Most useful at sites with shallow, low levels of contamination. Useful for treating a wide variety of environmental contaminants. Phytomediation can be applied for producing energy from controlled combustion of harvested biomass or extracting valuable metals from soil. Phytomediation technologies. Phytoextraction, phytoaccumulation. Plants accumulate contaminants into the roots and above ground shoots or leaves. Phytotransformation, phytogradation. Uptake of organic contaminants from soil and their transformation to more stable, less toxic, less mobile form. Phytostabilization. Plants reduce the mobility and migration of contaminated soil. Leachable. Constituents are absorbed and bound into the plant structure. Rhizode variation. Breakdown of contaminants through the activity existing in the rhizosphere, region of soil in the vicinity of plant roots. This activity is due to the presence of proteins and enzymes produced by the plants or by soil organisms such as bacteria, yeast, and fungi. Rhizofiltration. Water remediation technique that involves the uptake of contaminants by plant roots. Rhizofiltration is used to reduce contamination in natural wetlands and estuary areas, e.g. mangroves. Noise pollution. Disturbing or excessive noise is described as noise pollution. It's loud, non-harmonious vibrations that are unpleasant to hear. Usually sound measured in decibels, dB, and there is a decibel scale to measure noise pollution and its levels. Up to 20 decibels is considered as whisper, 40 decibels quiet office, 60 decibels normal conversation, above 80 decibels is considered as noise pollution on decibel scale. Noise pollution is having too many ill effects on life. It may cause fatigue, permanent deafness, it may develop crack in physical buildings, abortions in pregnant women, and prolonged exposure may lead to mental disorders. We can control noise pollution by isolating noise and noise sources. At the individual level, we should reduce volume to reduce noise pollution. It can also be reduced by planting trees, using proper lubrication and maintenance of machinery, using earplugs, etc. Question 8. Q. In the context of solving pollution problems, what are the advantages of bioremediation technique? 2017. 1. It is a technique for cleaning up pollution by enhancing the same bioremediation process that occurs in nature. 2. Any contaminant with heavy metals such as cadmium and lead can be readily and completely treated by bioremediation using microorganisms. 3. Genetic engineering can be used to create microorganisms specifically designed for bioremediation. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 1 only. B. 2 and 3 only. C. 1 and 3 only. D. 1, 2 and 3 answer C. Question 9. Q. Due to improper, indiscriminate disposal of old and used computers or their parts, which of the following released into the environment is a-waste? 2013. 1. Beryllium. 2. Cadmium. 3. Chromium. 4. Heptachlor. 5. Mercury. 6. Lead-7. Plutonium. Select the correct answer using the codes given below. 1, 3, 4, 6 and 7 only. B. 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6 only. C. 2, 4, 5 and 7 only. D. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 answer B. Do it yourself. Question 10. Q. Which of the following are some important pollutants released by steel industry in India? 2014. 1. Oxides of sulfur. 2. Oxides of nitrogen. 3. Carbon monoxide. 4. Carbon dioxide. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 1, 3 and 4 only. B. 1 and 3 only. C. 1 and 4 only. D. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Issues related to environment part 2. Question 1. Q. Consider the following statements about chlorofluorocarbons, known as ozone-depleting substances, are used 2012. 1. In the production of plastic foams. 2. In the production of tubeless tires. 3. In cleaning certain electronic components. 4. As specializing agents in aerosol cans. Which of the statements given above are correct? 1, 2 and 3 only. B. 4 only. C. 1, 3 and 4 only. D. 1, 2, 3 and 4 answer C. Explanation. Ozone layer depletion. Ozone layer. Ozone is a form of oxygen that has 3 atoms, O3, rather than the more common 2 atoms, O2. Ozone constitutes only less than 0.002% of the volume of the atmosphere. It is created in the upper atmosphere by the action of solar radiation on oxygen molecules. It is found in the form of a thin layer in the stratosphere between 15 to 48 kilometers. It strongly absorbs ultraviolet radiation from the sun. Ozone layer depletion. When chlorine and bromine atoms come into contact with ozone in the stratosphere, they destroy ozone molecules. One chlorine atom can destroy over 100,000 ozone molecules before it is removed from the stratosphere. Ozone can be destroyed more quickly than it is naturally created. Some compounds release chlorine or bromine when they are exposed to intense UV light in the stratosphere. These compounds contribute to ozone depletion and are called ozone-depleting substances, ODS. Ozone-depleting substances. Ozone-depleting substances are chemicals that destroy the Earth's protective ozone layer. They include chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, halon, carbon tetrachloride, CCl4, methylchloroform, CH3CCl3, hydrobromofluorocarbons, HBFCs, hydrochlorofluorocarbons, HCFCs, methylbromide, CH3 bridge, bromochloromethane, CH2BRCl. All these have different potentials to deplete ozone layer measures in terms of ozone layer depletion potential. Ozone-depleting substances sources. The main uses of ozone-depleting substances include CFCs and HCFCs in refrigerators and air conditioners, HCFCs and halons in fire extinguishers, CFCs and HCFCs in foam, CFCs and HCFCs as aerosol propellants, and methylbromide for fumigation of soil, structures and goods to be imported or exported. Question 2. Q. The formation of ozone hole in the Antarctic region has been a cause of concern. What could be the reason for the formation of this hole? 2011. A presence of prominent tropospheric turbulence and inflow of chlorofluorocarbons. B. Presence of prominent polar front and stratospheric clouds and inflow of chlorofluorocarbons. C. Absence of polar front and stratospheric clouds and inflow of methane and chlorofluorocarbons. D. Increased temperature at polar region due to global warming. Answer B. Explanation. Ozone layer depletion. Ozone depletion or ozone hole refer to the damage suffered by the ozone layer due to natural and anthropogenic causes. There is a steady decline of about 4% in the total volume of ozone in Earth's stratosphere. Much larger decrease in stratospheric ozone is observed around Earth's polar regions. The thickness of the ozone in a column of air from the ground to the top of the atmosphere is measured in terms of Dobson units blue. The ozone hole is defined geographically as the area wherein the total ozone amount is less than 220 Dobson units. It is a region of exceptionally depleted ozone in the stratosphere over the Antarctic that happens at the beginning of southern hemisphere spring, August, October. Formation of ozone hole. It is attributed to both natural and anthropogenic factors. The man-made factors include addition of ozone-depleting substances in atmosphere, while natural phenomenon is related to formation of polar stratospheric clouds in Antarctica. Role of ozone-depleting substances, CFC. Chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, are the primary culprits in ozone layer breakdown. When CFCs reach the upper atmosphere, they are exposed to ultraviolet rays, which causes them to break down into substances that include chlorine. The chlorine reacts with the oxygen atoms in ozone and rips apart the ozone molecule. One atom of chlorine can destroy more than 100,000 ozone molecules as it produces a chain reaction. Chemical reaction. Role of polar stratospheric clouds. Each spring in the stratosphere over September-November, atmospheric ozone is rapidly destroyed by chemical processes. As winter arrives, a vortex of winds develops around the pole and isolates the polar stratosphere. When temperatures drop below -78 degrees Celsius, -109 degrees Fahrenheit, thin clouds called polar stratospheric clouds (PSC), made up of ice, nitric acid, and sulfuric acid mixtures are formed. They are formed mainly during the event of polar vortex in winter, more intense at South Pole. These PSC provide a surface for reactions to occur and convert some of Cl molecule that originally cannot take part in ozone layer depletion into forms that can react with ozone molecule and can break it. Chemical reactions take place that convert the inactive chlorine reservoir chemicals into more active forms, especially chlorine gas Cl2. When the sunlight returns to the South Pole in October, UV light rapidly breaks the bond between the two chlorine atoms, releasing free chlorine into the stratosphere, where it takes part in reactions that destroy ozone molecules while regenerating the chlorine, known as a catalytic reaction. A catalytic reaction allows a single chlorine atom to destroy thousands of ozone molecules. Ozone depletion begins, and the ozone hole appears. This hole intensifies during southern summers and can deplete ozone layer by 50% or 90% in extreme cases. In addition to ozone depletion, there are some other contemporary issues as well that pose a threat to the environment around us. Global warming is one such issue. Let's just take a look at it and see what kinds of questions have been asked in previous year UPSC prelims related to the phenomenon of global warming. Global warming. Global warming is heating up of the globe when the accumulation of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere disturbs the heat budget. Balance between incoming and outgoing heat of the Earth, which otherwise remains balanced. Since heat remains trapped within the Earth's atmosphere, temperatures begin to rise. This can be due to natural factors like change in solar activity or variations in Earth's orbit, or man-made factors like increase in greenhouse gases, reduction in carbon sinks by deforestation and ocean acidification, etc. Greenhouse gas effect. A greenhouse is a structure with walls and roof made chiefly of transparent material, such as glass, in which plants requiring regulated climatic conditions are grown. In a greenhouse, the incident solar radiation, the visible and adjacent portions of the infrared and ultraviolet ranges of the spectrum, passes through the glass roof and walls and is absorbed by the flow, earth, and contents, which become warmer and re-emit the energy. As longer wavelength infrared radiation, heat radiation. As the structure is not open to the atmosphere, heat also cannot escape via convection, so the temperature inside the greenhouse rises. This is known as the greenhouse effect. A greenhouse gas is a gas that absorbs and emits radiant energy within the thermal infrared range. Greenhouse gas sources, sector emissions. Figure 5. Major greenhouse gases. Global warming potential. Global warming potential (GWP) is a measure of how much heat a greenhouse gas traps in the atmosphere up to a specific time horizon relative to carbon dioxide. It compares the amount of heat trapped by a certain mass of the gas in question to the amount of heat trapped by a similar mass of carbon dioxide and is expressed as a factor of carbon dioxide whose GWP is standardized to 1. It is different from actual contribution as it depends on mass of gas also. The GWP depends on the following factors: the absorption of infrared radiation by a given species, the spectral location of its absorbing wavelengths, the atmospheric lifetime of the species. Relative contribution. CO2 of fossil fuels greater than Company 2 from deforestation greater than CH4 greater than CFC greater than N2O effect of global warming. Carbon fertilization. The CO2 fertilization. Effect or carbon fertilization. Effect is the increased rate of photosynthesis in plants that results from increased levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The effect is stronger at higher temperatures, meaning it will be higher in the tropics than in the boreal forests. Effects. It leads to faster plant growth, which further leads to the sequestration of more CO2. The carbon fertilization effect will cause changes in crop yields. It should increase the crop yields in some regions. CO2 fertilization does not apply to all crops. For example, it does not apply to maize. Ocean acidification. Ocean acidification is the ongoing decrease in the pH of the Earth's oceans, caused by the uptake of carbon dioxide (CO2) from the atmosphere. An estimated 30 to 40% of the carbon dioxide from human activity released into the atmosphere dissolves into oceans, rivers and lakes. Checking CO and CO2 emissions and controlling pollution are the only means to reduce ocean acidification. Effects of ocean acidification. Effects on marine organism. Ocean acidification reduces the amount of carbonate, a key building block in seawater. This makes it more difficult for marine organisms, such as coral and some plankton, to form their shells and skeletons, and existing shells may begin to dissolve. The survival and growth of species is affected. Increasing acidity accentuates coral bleaching as corals are very sensitive to changes in water composition. Figure 6. Effect of global warming. Impact on atmospheric phenomenon. The majority of sulfur in the atmosphere is emitted from the ocean, often in the form of dimethyl sulfide (DMS) produced by phytoplankton. Some of DMS produced by phytoplankton enters the atmosphere and reacts to make sulfuric acid, which clumps into aerosols or microscopic airborne particles. Aerosols seed the formation of clouds, which help cool the earth by reflecting sunlight. But, in acidified ocean water, phytoplankton produce less DMS. This reduction of sulfur may lead to decreased cloud formation, raising global temperatures. Intensifies climate change and reduces its capacity as carbon sinks. Socioeconomic impacts. Impacts availability seafood. Impacts coral tourism. Reducing global warming by using carbon sinks. Carbon sinks. A carbon sink is a natural or artificial reservoir that accumulates and stores some carbon-containing chemical compound for an indefinite period. The process by which carbon sinks remove carbon dioxide (CO2) from the atmosphere is known as carbon sequestration. A carbon sink is anything that absorbs more carbon than it releases, whilst a carbon source is anything that releases more carbon than is absorbed. Forests, soils, oceans and the atmosphere all store carbon in this. Carbon moves between them in a continuous cycle. Plants grab carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to use in photosynthesis. The oceans are a major carbon storage system as phytoplankton take up the gas for photosynthesis, while some carbon dioxide simply dissolves in the seawater. Low temperatures like in polar ice caps increases dissolution and hence play an important part in carbon cycle. Question 3. Q. The increasing amount of carbon dioxide in the air is slowly raising the temperature of the atmosphere because it absorbs 2012. The water vapor of the air and retains its heat. B. The ultraviolet part of the solar radiation. C. All the solar radiations. D. The infrared part of the solar radiation. Answer D. Question 4. Q. Due to the extensive rice cultivation, some regions may be contributing to global warming. To what possible reasons is this attributable? 2010. 1. The anaerobic conditions associated with rice cultivation cause the emission of methane. 2. When nitrogen-based fertilizer are used, nitrous oxide is emitted from the cultivated soil. Which of the statements given above are correct? 1 only. B. 2 only. C. Both 1 and 2. D. Neither 1 nor 2. Answer C. Question 5. Q. Consider the following. 2008. 1. Rice fields. 2. Coal mining. 3. Domestic animals. 4. Wetlands. Which of the above are sources of methane, a major greenhouse gas? 1 and 4 only, B. 2 and 3 only, C. 1, 2 and 3 only, D. 1, 2, 3 and 4 answer, D. Question 6. Q. Which of the following statements best describes carbon fertilization? 2018. A. Increased plant growth due to increased concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. B. Increased temperature of Earth due to increased concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. C. Increased acidity of oceans as a result of increased concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. D. Adaptation of all living beings on Earth to the climate change brought about by the increased concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Answer A. Question 7. Q. Human activities in the recent past have caused the increased concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, but a lot of it does not remain in the lower atmosphere because of 2011. 1. Its escape into the outer stratosphere. 2. The photosynthesis by phytoplankton in the oceans. 3. The trapping of air in the polar ice caps. Which of the statements given above are correct? 1 and 2, B. 2 only, C. 2 and 3, D. 3 only answer, C. Question 8. Q. The acidification of oceans is increasing. Why is this phenomenon a cause of concern? 2012. 1. The growth and survival of calcareous phytoplankton will be adversely affected. 2. The growth and survival of coral reefs will be adversely affected. 3. The survival of some animals that have phytoplankton larvae will be adversely affected. 4. The cloud seeding and formation of clouds will be adversely affected. Which of the statements given above are correct? 1, 2 and 3 only, B. 2 only. C. 1 and 3 only, D. 1, 2, 3 and 4 answer, D. Question 9. Q. Consider the following, 2010. 1. Oxides of hydrogen. 2. Oxides of nitrogen. 3. Oxides of sulfur. Which of the above causes acid rain? 1 and 2 only, B. 3 only. C. 2 and 3 only, D. 1, 2 and 3 answer, C. Question 10. Q. Acid rain is caused by the pollution of environment by 2013. Carbon dioxide and nitrogen. B. Carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. C. Ozone and carbon dioxide. D. Nitrous oxide and sulfur dioxide answer, D. Explanation. Acid rain. Acid rain refers to any precipitation, rain, fog, mist, snow that is more acidic than normal. pH below 7 equals acidic. It has pH of 5.6 or less. Acid rain is caused by atmospheric pollution from acidic gases such as sulfur dioxide and oxides of nitrogen emitted from burning of fossil fuels or from exhausts of factories or vehicles. The oxides of nitrogen and sulfur can be added due to natural or man-made factors. Effects. Ocean acidification. Ocean acidification is the ongoing decrease in the pH of the Earth's oceans, caused by the uptake of carbon dioxide, CO2, from the atmosphere. An estimated 30 to 40% of the carbon dioxide from human activity released into the atmosphere dissolves into oceans, rivers and lakes. Acid rain can have a pH between 1 and 6 and has impact on surface ocean chemistry and contributes to ocean acidification. Effects on ecosystem. Acid rain damage cuticle of plant leaves resulting annihilation, pale and weak, of foliage. This in turn reduces photosynthesis. Acidic medium promotes leaching of heavy metals like aluminium, lead and mercury. Such metals when percolate into groundwater affect soil microflora, fauna. The optimum pH of most bacteria and protozoa is near neutrality. Most fungi prefer an acidic environment, most blue-green bacteria prefer an alkaline environment. So after a long run of acid rain, microbial species in the soil and water shift from bacteria-bound to fungi-bound and cause an imbalance in the microflora. This causes a delay in the decomposition of soil organic material, and an increase in fungal disease in aquatic life in forests. Effects on buildings and monuments. Limestone and marble are destroyed by acid rain. Smoke and soot cover such objects. They slowly dissolve, flake away the surfaces because of acid fumes in the air. E.g., Taj Mahal. Effects on humans. The obvious ones are bad smells, reduced visibility, irritation of the skin, eyes and the respiratory tract. Some direct effects include chronic bronchitis, pulmonary emphysema and cancer. Do it yourself. Question 11. Q. In the context of mitigating the impending global warming due to anthropogenic emissions of carbon dioxide, which of the following can be the potential sites for carbon sequestration? 1. Abandoned and uneconomic coal seams. 2. Depleted oil and gas reservoirs. 3. Subterranean deep saline formation. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 1 and 2 only. B. 3 only. C. 1 and 3 only. D. 1, 2 and 3. Question 12. Q. Read about the following species seen frequently in news. Find out their IUCN status, their habitat and distribution across India. Malabar civet. B. Golden lingur. C. Ganges shark. D. Asiatic lion. Environmental conservation techniques and initiatives. Question 1. Q. With reference to fuel cells in which hydrogen-rich fuel and oxygen are used to generate electricity. Consider the following statements. 2015I. 1. If pure hydrogen is used as a fuel, the fuel cell emits heat and water as byproducts. 2. Fuel cells can be used for powering buildings and not for small devices like laptop computers. 3. Fuel cells produce electricity in the form of alternating current AC. Which of the statements given above are correct? 1 only. B. 2 and 3 only. C. 1 and 3 only. D. 1, 2 and 3 answer, A. Explanation. Hydrogen fuel cell. A fuel cell is a device that converts chemical potential energy, energy stored in molecular bonds, into electrical energy. It uses hydrogen gas H2 and oxygen gas O2 as fuel. The products of the reaction in the cell are water, electricity, and heat. Advantages. Inherently more efficient than combustion engines and thermal energy generation because chemical potential energy is directly converted into electrical energy. Direct emissions from a fuel cell vehicle are just water and a little heat. Fuel used is oxygen and hydrogen which can be produced without harming the environment. Can be used to power large buildings to small equipments. Do it yourself. Question 2. Q. Hydrogen fuel cell vehicles produce one of the following is exhaust 2010. NH3, B, CH4, C, H2O, D, H2O2 figure 7, hydrogen fuel cell. Question 3. Q. Which one of the following fuels causes minimum environmental pollution? 1995. Diesel, B, coal. C, hydrogen, D, kerosene. Question 4. Q. Consider the following kinds of organisms. 2012I. 1. Bacteria. 2. Fungi. 3. Flowering plants. Some species of which of the above kinds of organisms are employed as biopesticide? 1 only. B. 2 and 3 only. C. 1 and 3 only. D. 1, 2 and 3 answer, D. Explanation. Biopesticide. Biopesticide are naturally occurring substances that can be used to control pests. They are obtained from various organisms including plants, bacteria and other microbes, fungi, nematodes, etc. They are often important components of integrated pest management (IPM) programs and have received much practical attention as substitutes to synthetic chemical plant protection products (EPPs). Examples: Bacillus thuringiensis bacteria, which has also been used for creating Bt cotton, and entomopathogenic fungi. Various worms which eat insects. Various flowering and non-flowering plants like neem etc. Question 5. Q. Biomass gasification is considered to be one of the sustainable solutions to the power crisis in India. In this context, which of the following statements are correct? 2012 I. 1. Coconut shells, groundnut shells and rice husks can be used in biomass gasification. 2. The combustible gases generated from biomass gasification consist of hydrogen and carbon dioxide only. 3. The combustible gases generated from biomass gasification can be used for direct heat generation but not in internal combustion engines. Select the correct answer using the codes given below. A. 1 only. B. 2 and 3 only. C. 1 and 3 only. D. 1, 2 and 3 answer A. Explanation. Biomass gasification. Biomass gasification is a process of converting solid biomass fuel into a gaseous combustible gas, called producer gas or syngas, through a sequence of thermochemical reactions. This is achieved by reacting the material at high temperatures greater than 700 degrees Celsius without combustion with a controlled amount of oxygen and or steam. The gas produced consists of carbon monoxide, hydrogen, carbon dioxide and small amounts of methane, ethane etc. Applications. For generating heat and electricity. As a transport fuel along with petrol and diesel. Question 6. Q. Microbial fuel cells are considered a source of sustainable energy. Why? 2011 I. 1. They use living organisms as catalysts to generate electricity from certain substrates. 2. They use a variety of inorganic materials as substrates. 3. They can be installed in wastewater treatment plants to cleanse water and produce electricity. Which of the following statements given above are correct? A. 1 only. B. 2 and 3 only. C. 1 and 3 only. D. 1, 2 and 3 answer D. Explanation. Microbial fuel cells. A microbial fuel cell, also known as biological fuel cell, is a device that converts chemical energy to electrical energy by the action of microorganisms. These organisms act upon a variety of organic and inorganic substrates in anaerobic conditions. Carbon dioxide and electricity is produced as a byproduct of the decomposition process. These fuel cells can be used for electricity generation, wastewater treatment, sewage treatment and solid waste disposal plants etc. Question 7. Q. With reference to two non-conventional energy sources called coalbed methane and shale gas, consider the following statements. 2014 I. 1. Coalbed methane is the pure methane gas extracted from coal seams, while shale gas is a mixture of propane and butane only that can be extracted from fine-grained sedimentary rocks. 2. In India, abundant coalbed methane sources exist, but so far, no shale gas sources have been found. Which of the statements given above are correct? A. 1 only. B. 2 only. C. Both 1 and 2. D. Neither 1 nor 2 answer D. Figure 8. Microbial fuel cell. Explanation. Coalbed methane. Coalbed methane, also known as coalbed gas, sweet gas etc., is a form of natural gas extracted from coal beds. This methane may exist as free gas, saturated with water or in a liquid state lining the inside of pores within the coal seams. Coalbed methane contains very little heavier hydrocarbons such as propane or butane. It often contains up to a few % carbon dioxide. It poses a serious risk to coal miners as this form of methane is highly inflammable. Coalbed methane is found in Indian coal mines and is being commercially extracted to produce fuels like CNG etc. Shale gas. Shale gas is natural gas that is found trapped within shale, a type of sedimentary rock formations. This gas mainly consists of methane but also includes small amount of carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxides and other hydrocarbons. At present, only a few countries, including USA, Canada and China, have significant commercial shale gas production. Potential shale gas reserves have also been found in India in various sedimentary formations of the peninsular river basins and coasts. Question 8. Q. Match list I. Fuel gases with list 2 major constituents and select the correct answer using the codes given below the lists. 2004. List I. List 2. A. CNG1, carbon monoxide, hydrogen B. Coal gas 2, butane, propane. C. LPG 3, methane, ethane. D. Water gas 4, hydrogen, methane, carbon monoxide. Codes. A. A2, B1, C3, D4, B. A3, B4, C2, D1, C. A2, B4, C3, D1, D. A3, B1, C2, D4 answer B. Explanation. Water gas. Water gas is a combustion fuel containing carbon monoxide CO and hydrogen gas H2. Water gas is made by passing steam over heated hydrocarbons. Coal gas. Coal gas is a flammable gaseous fuel including hydrogen, carbon monoxide, methane, ethylene and volatile hydrocarbons together with small quantities of non-calorific gases such as carbon dioxide and nitrogen. It is produced when coal is heated strongly in the absence of air. It is also known as town gas, referring to manufactured gaseous fuels produced for sale to consumers and municipalities. Synthesis gas. Syngas, or synthesis gas, is a fuel gas mixture consisting primarily of hydrogen, carbon monoxide, and very often some carbon dioxide. Syngas can be produced from many sources, including natural gas, coal, biomass, or virtually any hydrocarbon feedstock by reaction with steam or oxygen. Natural gas. Natural gas is a naturally occurring hydrocarbon gas mixture consisting primarily of methane, but commonly including varying amounts of other high alkanes, and sometimes a small percentage of carbon dioxide, nitrogen, hydrogen sulfide, or helium. Liquefied petroleum gas. It is a flammable mixture of propane and butane, heavy hydrocarbon gases. It is formed after refining the petroleum crude. Question 9. Q. It is possible to produce algae-based biofuels, but what are the likely limitations of developing countries in promoting this industry? 2017. 1. Production of algae-based biofuels is possible in seas only and not on continents. 2. Setting up and engineering the algae-based biofuel production requires high level of expertise, technology until the construction is completed. 3. Economically viable production necessitates the setting up of large-scale facilities which may raise ecological and social concerns. Select the correct answer using the code given below. A. 1 and 2 only, B. 2 and 3 only, C. 3 only. D. 1, 2 and 3 answer, B. Explanation. Biofuels. A biofuel is a fuel that is produced through contemporary biological processes, such as agriculture and anaerobic digestion, rather than a fuel produced by geological processes such as those involved in the formation of fossil fuels such as coal and petroleum. From prehistoric biological matter. Biofuels can be derived directly from plants, i.e. energy crops and algae, or indirectly from agricultural, commercial, domestic, and/or industrial wastes. Biofuels are in theory carbon neutral because the carbon dioxide that is absorbed by the plants is equal to the carbon dioxide that is released when the fuel is burned. Algae-based biofuels. Algae are a group of large number of aquatic plant-like organisms which range from microscopic cyanobacteria to giant seaweeds. Algae grow much faster than food crops and can produce hundreds of times more biofuel per unit area than conventional crops like sugarcane, jackfruit, etc. But for commercial production of these fuels, large-scale algae cultivation is required. This requires investment in technical equipment and expertise for construction of algae farms. Question 10. Q. With reference to technologies for solar power production, consider the following statements. 2014I. 1. Photovoltaics is a technology that generates electricity by direct conversion of light into electricity, while solar thermal is a technology that utilizes the sun's rays to generate heat which is further used in electricity generation process. 2. Photovoltaics generates alternating current AC, while solar thermal generates direct current DC. 3. India has manufacturing base for solar thermal technology, but not for photovoltaics. Which of the statements given above are correct? 1 only. B. 2 and 3 only. C. 1, 2 and 3. D. None. Answer. A. Explanation. Solar power. Solar power is the conversion of energy from sunlight into electricity, either directly using photovoltaics PV or indirectly using solar thermal power. Solar photovoltaics. Solar photovoltaics PV is the conversion of light directly into electricity using semiconducting materials in photovoltaic cells. When photon sunlight strikes these cells, electric current is induced. This is known as photovoltaic effect. The electricity generated is in form of direct current. Solar thermal power. In this technology, solar light is concentrated in a small area to generate heat. Then this heat energy is used directly or converted into electricity using steam turbines. Therefore, this technology is also known as concentrated solar power. This technique is used for solar water heating, solar cooking and power generation etc. Question 11. Q. Consider the following agricultural practices. 2012I. 1. Contour bunding. 2. Relay cropping free, zero tillage. In the context of global climate change, which of the above help in carbon sequestration, storage in the soil? 1 and 2 only. B. 3 only. C. 1, 2 and 3. D. None of them. Answer. C. Explanation. Carbon sequestration. Atmospheric concentrations of carbon dioxide can be lowered either by reducing emissions or by taking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and storing in terrestrial, oceanic, or freshwater aquatic ecosystems. Carbon sequestration is the process involved in carbon capture and the long-term storage of atmospheric carbon dioxide in carbon sinks like subsurface saline aquifers, reservoirs, ocean water, aging oil fields and biological matter. Natural biogeochemical cycling of carbon between the atmosphere and reservoirs, such as by chemical weathering of rocks. It can be done through biological methods like forestation, algae blooms, soil carbon storage etc. It can also be done through physical methods like geological sequestration, ocean storage etc. Soil carbon sequestration. Improved agricultural practices can help mitigate climate change by reducing emissions from agriculture and other sources and by storing carbon in plant biomass and soils. The goal of agricultural carbon removal is to use the crop and its relation to the carbon cycle to permanently sequester carbon within the soil. This is done by selective farming methods that return biomass to the soil. This can be accomplished through use cover crops such as grasses and weeds as temporary cover between planting seasons. Relay cropping. The second crop is planted into the first crop before harvest so that soil is never bare. Adopt zero till or minimal tilling. Improving land and soil quality by checking erosion and degradation. Typically after 15 to 30 years of sequestration, soil becomes saturated and ceases to absorb carbon. This implies that there is a global limit to the amount of carbon that soil can hold. National Environment Legislations. Question 1. Q. The National Green Tribunal Act 2010 was enacted in consonance with which of the following provisions of the Constitution of India? 2012I. 1. Right to healthy environment, construed as a part of right to life under Article 21. 2. Provision of grants for raising the level of administration in the scheduled areas for the welfare of scheduled tribes under Article 2751. 3. Powers and functions of Gram Sabha as mentioned under Article 243A. Select the correct answer using the codes given below. 1 only. B. 2 and 3 only. C. 1 and 3 only. D. 1, 2 and 3. Answer. A. Explanation. National Green Tribunal. National Green Tribunal is a specialized tribunal formed under the National Green Tribunal Act 2010. It is a statutory body. The stated objective of the tribunal was to provide a specialized forum for effective and speedy disposal of cases pertaining to environment protection, conservation of forests, for seeking compensation for damages caused to people or property due to violation of environmental laws or conditions specified while granting permissions. The tribunal shall not be bound by the procedure laid down under the Code of Civil Procedure, 1908 and Indian Evidence Act, 1872, but shall be guided by principles of natural justice. The appeal against decisions of NGT lies directly before the Supreme Court of India. Composition of National Green Tribunal. The principal bench of the NGT has been established in the national capital, New Delhi, with regional benches in Pune, Western Zone Bench, Bhopal, Central Zone Bench, Chennai, Southern Bench, and Kolkata, Eastern Bench. Each bench of the NGT will comprise of at least one judicial member and one expert member. Expert members should have a professional qualification and a minimum of 15 years experience in the field of environment, forest conservation and related subjects. The chairperson of the NGT is a retired judge of the Supreme Court, headquartered in Delhi. Other judicial members are retired judges of high courts. Powers of National Green Tribunal. The NGT has the power to hear all civil cases relating to environmental issues and questions that are linked to the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, 1974, the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution, CES Act, 1977, the Forest Conservation Act, 1980, the Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, 1981, the Environment Protection Act, 1986, the Public Liability Insurance Act, 1991, the Biological Diversity Act, 2002. Question 2. Q. How is the National Green Tribunal, NGT, different from the Central Pollution Control Board, CPCB? 2018. 1. The NGT has been established by an act whereas the CPCB has been created by an executive order of the government. 2. The NGT provides environmental justice and helps reduce the burden of litigation in the higher courts whereas the CPCB promotes cleanliness of streams and wells and aims to improve the quality of air in the country. Which of the statements given above are correct? 1 only. B. 2 only. C. Both 1 and 2. D. Neither 1 nor 2. Answer. B. Explanation. Central Pollution Control Board. The Central Pollution Control Board, CPCB, of India is a statutory organization under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, MoF and CC. It was established in 1974 under the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, 1974. The CPCB is also entrusted with the powers and functions under the Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, 1981. Functions. Implementation of legislation relating to prevention and control of environmental pollution. Checking and monitoring pollution in various forms including air, water, noise etc. Collaborating with state pollution control boards and assisting them in their functions. Ecocity programs to improve environment through implementation of identified environmental improvement projects in the selected towns and cities. Formulation of waste management rules like solid waste, plastic waste, electronic waste etc. CPCB maintains environmental data statistic in which air quality data and water quality data comes through. Question 3. Q. The Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee, whose permission is required for cultivation of any genetically modified crop such as BT cotton in India, is under the Union Ministry of 2003. A. Agriculture. B. Environment and Forests. C. Commerce and Industry. D. Rural Development. Answer B. Explanation. Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee. The Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee, GEAC, was constituted under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, MoE FCC. It is the apex body under the Rules for Manufacture, Use, Import, Export and Storage of Hazardous Microorganisms, Genetically Engineered Organisms or CES 1989, in accordance with the Environment Protection Act, 1986. The following are the core functions of the Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee: to appraise activities involving the large-scale use of hazardous microorganisms and recombinants in research and industrial production from the environmental angle, to appraise proposals relating to release of genetically engineered organisms and products into the environment including experimental field trials. The committee or any persons authorized by it has powers to take punitive action under the Environment Protection Act. Question 4. Q. How does National Biodiversity Authority (NBA) help in protecting the Indian agriculture? 2012 I. 1. NBA checks the biopiracy and protects the indigenous and traditional genetic resources. 2. NBA directly monitors and supervises the scientific research on genetic modification of crop plants. 3. Application for intellectual property rights related to genetic, biological resources cannot be made without the approval of NBA. Which of the statements given above are correct? A. 1 only. B. 2 and 3 only. C. 1 and 3 only. D. 1, 2 and 3. Answer C. Explanation. National Biodiversity Authority. The National Biodiversity Authority (NBA) was established in 2003 to implement India's Biological Diversity Act 2002. The NBA is a statutory body and it performs facilitative, regulatory and advisory functions for the Government of India on issues of conservation, sustainable use of biological resources and fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the use of biological resources. Its functions include to advise the central government on matters relating to the conservation of biodiversity, sustainable use of its components and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the utilization of biological resources. To approve the grant of intellectual property rights, in any country outside India or in India, on any biological resource obtained from India or knowledge associated with such biological resource which is derived from India. To regulate access to biological resources and or associated knowledge for research, biosurvey and bioutilization, commercial utilization, obtaining intellectual property rights, transfer of results of research and transfer of accessed biological resources. Question 5. Q. Which one of the following legislations does not deal with the protection of environment? 1999. A. The Water, CES, Act, 1977. B. The Forest Conservation Act, 1980. C. The Public Liability Insurance Act, 1991. D. The Port Laws Amendment Act, 1997. Answer D. Explanation. The Water Prevention and Control of Pollution, CES ACT, 1977. The Water Prevention and Control of Pollution, CES Act, 1977 aims to provide for the levy and collection of cess on water consumed by persons carrying on certain industries and by local authorities, with a view to augment the resources of the central board and the state boards for the prevention and control of water pollution constituted under the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, 1974. The Forest Conservation ACT, 1980. It was enacted for restricting the use of forest land for non-forest purposes and prevent clear felling of naturally grown trees. It restricts leasing of forest land to private individuals, authority, corporations not owned by the government. The Public Liability Insurance ACT, 1991. An act to provide for public liability insurance for the purpose of providing immediate relief to the persons affected by accident occurring while handling any hazardous substances. The Prevention of Cruelty to Animal ACT, PCA, 1960. To prevent the infliction of unnecessary pain or suffering on animals. Animal Board of India was constituted under this act. The Wildlife Protection ACT, 1972. It was enacted for protection of wild animals, plants, birds, etc. National Board for Wildlife and National Tiger Conservation Authority are constituted under this act. National Park Sanctuaries, Conservation Reserves, Community Reserves, Marine Reserves, etc. are constituted under this act. The Environment Protection ACT, 1986. To regulate environmental pollution, laying down procedures and standards for industrial waste, emissions, hazardous waste. Environment Protection Authority, Eco-sensitive zones constituted under this act. Question 6. Q. Consider the following statements, 2014 I. 1. Animal Welfare Board of India is established under the Environment Protection Act, 1986. 2. National Tiger Conservation Authority is a statutory body. 3. National Ganga River Basin Authority is chaired by the Prime Minister. Which of the statements given above are correct? A. 1 only. B. 2 and 3 only. C. 2 only. D. 1, 2 and 3. Answer B. Explanation. National Tiger Conservation Authority. The National Tiger Conservation Authority was launched in 2005. It was given statutory status by 2006 Amendment of the Wildlife Protection Act. Environment Minister is the chairman of the NTCA. Below chairman are 8 experts or professionals. NTCA is the overarching body for conservation of tigers in India. Its main administrative function is to approve the tiger conservation plan prepared by the state governments. Every year, the central government puts the annual report of the National Tiger Conservation Authority in each House of Parliament. National Ganga River Basin Authority. It is a financing, planning, implementing, monitoring and coordinating authority for the Ganges River, functioning under the Water Resource Ministry of India. It was established in 2009 under the Environment Protection Act, 1986. There are a total of 23 members of the NIRBA. The Prime Minister is the chair of the authority. Other members include Chief Ministers of states through which Ganga flows, select Union Cabinet Ministers and some experts. Do it yourself. Question 7. Q. Which of the following are the key features of National Ganga River Basin Authority, NGRBA? 1. River Basin is the unit of planning and management. 2. It spearheads the river conservation efforts at the national level. 3. One of the Chief Ministers of the states through which the Ganga flows becomes the chairman of NGRBA on rotation basis. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 1 and 2 only, B, 2 and 3 only, C, 1 and 3 only, D, 1, 2 and 3. Question 8. Q. With reference to eco-sensitive zones, which of the following statements are correct? 2049. 1. Eco-sensitive zones are the areas that are declared under the Wildlife Protection Act, 1972. 2. The purpose of the declaration of eco-sensitive zones is to prohibit all kinds of human activities in those zones except agriculture. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 1 only. B. 2 only. C. Both 1 and 2. D. Neither 1 nor 2. Answer D. Explanation. Eco-sensitive zones. Environment Protection Act, 1986 says that central government can restrict areas in which any industries, operations or processes shall not be carried out on the basis of considerations like the biological diversity of an area. Maximum allowable limits of concentration of pollutants for an area environmentally compatible land use proximity to protected areas. Thus, government has declared eco-sensitive zones or ecologically fragile areas (EFA). The MoF, Ministry of Environment and Forests, has approved a comprehensive set of guidelines laying down parameters and criteria for declaring ESAs. Not all human activities are prohibited in these areas. It permits cottage industries, erection of telecom and electricity wires, tourism, hot air balloons, agriculture and so on. Question 9. Q. With reference to Bombay Natural History Society, BNHS, consider the following statements. 2014I. 1. It is an autonomous organization under the Ministry of Environment and Forests. 2. It strives to conserve nature through action-based research, education and public awareness. 3. It organizes and conducts nature trails and camps for the general public. Which of the statements given above are correct? 1 and 3 only, B, 2 only. C, 2 and 3 only, D, 1, 2 and 3. Answer, C. Explanation. Bombay Natural History Society. The Bombay Natural History Society, founded on the 15th of September 1883, is one of the largest non-governmental organizations in India engaged in conservation and biodiversity research. It supports many research efforts through grants and publishes the Journal of the Bombay Natural History Society. Many prominent naturalists, including the ornithologist Salim Ali and S. Dillon Ripley, have been associated with it. BNHS is the partner of BirdLife International in India. It has been designated as a scientific and industrial research organization by the Department of Science and Technology. Its headquarters is in Mumbai and has one regional center at Wetland Research and Training Center near Chita Lake, Orissa. Do it yourself. Question 10. Q. Gargil Committee Report and Kasturirangan Committee Report, sometimes seen in the news, are related to a constitutional reforms. B. Ganga Action Plan. C. Linking of rivers. D. Protection of Western Ghats. Question 11. Q. With reference to India, consider the following central acts. 1. Import and Export Control Act, 1947. 2. Mining and Mineral Development Regulation Act, 1957. 3. Customs Act, 1962. 4. Indian Forest Act, 1927. Which of the above acts have relevance to bearing on the biodiversity conservation in the country? 2011. 1 and 3 only. B. 2, 3 and 4 only. C. 1, 2, 3 and 4. D. None of the above acts. Answer, C. Explanation. Central acts and rules having relevance to biodiversity conservation. Fisheries Act, 1897. Destructive Insects and Pests Act, 1914. The Indian Forest Act, 1927. Agricultural Produce Grading and Marketing Act, 1937. Indian Coffee Act, 1942. Mining and Mineral Development Regulation Act, 1957. Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, 1960. Customs Act, 1962. Cardamom Act, 1965. Seeds Act, 1966. The Patents Act, 1970. Wildlife Protection Act, 1972. Marine Products Export Development Authority Act, 1972. Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, 1974. Territorial Water, Continental Shelf, Exclusive Economic Zone and Other Maritime Zones Act, 1976. Water Prevention and Control of Pollution, CES Act, 1977. Maritime Zones of India, Regulation and Fishing by Foreign Vessels Act, 1980. Forest Conservation Act, 1980. Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, 1981. Agricultural and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority Act, 1985-1986. Environment Protection Act, 1986. Spices Board Act, 1986. National Dairy Development Board, 1987. Rules for the Manufacture, Use, Import, Export and Storage of Hazardous Microorganisms, Genetically Engineered Organisms or Cells, 1989. Foreign Trade Development and Regulation Act, 1992. Imports and Exports Control Act, 1947 got repealed with the enactment of Foreign Trade Development and Regulation Act, 1992. Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights, PPVFR Act, 2001. Biological Diversity Act, 2002. Plant Quarantine, Regulation of Import into India, Order, 2003. Biological Diversity Rules, 2004. The Food Safety and Standards Act, 2006. Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers, Recognition of Forest Rights Act, 2006. Question 12. Q. On which of the following can you find the Bureau of Energy Efficiency star label? 1. Ceiling fans. 2. Electric geysers. 3. Tubular fluorescent lamps. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 1 and 2 only, B, 3 only. C. 2 and 3 only, D, 1, 2 and 3. Answer, D. Explanation. Bureau of Energy Efficiency. The Bureau of Energy Efficiency is an agency of the Government of India, under the Ministry of Power created in March 2002 under the provisions of the nation's 2001 Energy Conservation Act. Functions. The agency function is to develop programs which will increase the conservation and efficient use of energy in India. The mission of Bureau of Energy Efficiency is to institutionalize energy efficiency services, enable delivery mechanisms in the country and provide leadership to energy efficiency in all sectors of the country. Energy ratings. Energy labels, or more explicitly called energy efficiency labels, are informative labels affixed to manufactured products to indicate the product's energy performance. The energy parameters indicate quantitatively how much energy is consumed by the product or the energy efficiency rating of that product and/or other related requirements. Question 13. Q. With reference to the Indian Renewable Energy Development Agency Limited, IREDA, which of the following statements are correct? 2015I. 1. It is a public limited government company. 2. It is a non-banking financial company. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 1 only. B. 2 only. C. Both 1 and 2. D. Neither 1 nor 2 answer C. Explanation. Indian Renewable Energy Development Agency IREDA. The Indian Renewable Energy Development Agency IREDA is a non-banking financial institution under the administrative control of Ministry of New and Renewable Energy for providing term loans for renewable energy and energy efficiency projects. International treaties, protocols and organizations. In this chapter, we will be analyzing the previous year UPSC prelims questions asked in context of international treaties and organization. Let's go through the topic first. Earth Summits. The Earth Summits are decennial meetings of world leaders, organized since 1972 with help of the United Nations, to help defining ways to stimulate sustainable development at the global level. The first summit, United Nations Conference on the Human Environment, took place in Stockholm, Sweden in 1972. The second summit was in Nairobi, Kenya in 1982, the third in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil in 1992 and the fourth in Johannesburg, South Africa in 2002. Last Earth Summit, called Rio Plus 20, also took place in Rio de Janeiro in 2012. Rio Summit, 1992. The United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, UNCED, also known as Rio Summit, was the third UN Earth Summit held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil from 3 to the 14th of June 1992. Earth Summit was held as a response for member states to cooperate together internationally on environment and sustainable development issues. The summit resulted in various landmark international conventions and agreements to combat climate change, protect biodiversity and promote sustainable development. It was attended by 172 countries and many NGOs, scientists and other civil society groups. Outcome of Rio Summit, 1992. The Rio Declaration on Environment and Development. The Convention on Biological Diversity, legally binding agreement to protect biodiversity. The Framework Convention on Climate Change, legally binding treaty to combat climate change. Principles of Forest Management, non-legally binding document that makes several recommendations for conservation and sustainable development forestry. Agenda 21, a non-binding action plan for sustainable development. Convention to combat desertification, legally binding convention to check desertification. Johannesburg Summit, 2002. The World Summit on Sustainable Development, WSSD, or Rio Plus 10, was convened to discuss sustainable development by the United Nations. The Johannesburg Declaration on Sustainable Development was adopted. Rio Summit, 2012. The United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development, UNCSD, also known as Rio 2012, Rio Plus 20 was the third international conference on sustainable development. Major outcome. Partnership for Action on Green Economy, page to assist interested countries in developing, adopting and implementing inclusive green economy policies and strategies. Now try to solve these questions which are based on summits. Question 1. Q, which is Rio Plus 20 conference, often mentioned in the news. 2015I. It is the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development. B. It is a ministerial meeting of the World Trade Organization. C. It is a conference of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. D. It is a conference of the member countries of the Convention on Biological Diversity. Answer A. Question 2. Q. With reference to Agenda 21, sometimes seen in the news, consider the following statements. 2016. 1. It is a global action plan for sustainable development. 2. It originated in the World Summit on Sustainable Development held in Johannesburg in 2002. Which of the statements given above are correct? 1 only. B. 2 only. C. Both 1 and 2. D. Neither 1 nor 2. Answer A. Question 3. Q. The Partnership for Action on Green Economy, page, a UN mechanism to assist countries transition towards greener and more inclusive economies, emerged in 2018. The Earth Summit on Sustainable Development 2002, Johannesburg. B. The United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development 2012, Rio de Janeiro. C. The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change 2015, Paris. D. The World Sustainable Development Summit 2016, New Delhi. Answer B. Question 4. Q. Which is the importance of the United Nations Convention to combat desertification. 1. It aims to promote effective action through innovative national programs in support of international partnerships. 2. It has a special particular focus on South Asia and North Africa regions, and its secretariat facilitates the allocation of major portion of financial resources to these regions. 3. It is committed to bottom-up approach, encouraging the participation of local people in combating the desertification. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 2016. 1 only. B. 2 and 3 only. C. 1 and 3 only. D. 1, 2 and 3. Answer C. Explanation. United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, UNCCD. The convention stemmed from a direct recommendation of the Rio Conference's Agenda 21, was adopted in Paris, France in 1994 and entered into force in 1996. UNCCD is a convention to combat desertification and mitigate the effects of drought through national action programs (NAP) that incorporate long-term strategies supported by international cooperation and partnership arrangements. It collaborates closely with Convention on Biodiversity. It does not allocate any financial resources to the regions concerned. The convention has established a Committee on Science and Technology (CST) with representatives competent in the fields of expertise relevant to combating desertification and mitigating the effects of drought. It is the only internationally legally binding framework set up to address the problem of desertification. To help publicize the convention, 2006 was declared International Year of Deserts and Desertification. The Conference of the Parties (COP) oversees the implementation of the convention. It is held biennially. Last COP was COP 13 in Ordo City, China. The COP 14 will be held in 2019 in New Delhi. Question 5. Q. Consider the following statements. 2005. 1. Kyoto Protocol came into force in the year 2005. 2. Kyoto Protocol deals primarily with the depletion of the ozone layer. 3. Methane is a greenhouse gas is more harmful than carbon dioxide. Which of the statements given above are correct? 1 and 2. B. 1 and 3. C. 1 only. D. 3 only. Answer B. Explanation. United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. UNFCCC is negotiated at the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, UNCED, 1992. UNFCCC provides a framework for negotiating specific international treaties called protocols that aim to set binding limits on greenhouse gases. The parties to the convention have met annually from 1995 in conferences of the parties, COP, to assess progress in dealing with climate change. The first UN Climate Change Conference, COP1, was held in 1995 in Berlin. Last COP, COP24, was held in Katowice, Poland. The 25th session of the Conference of the Parties, COP25, will be organized by Chile. Kyoto Protocol. The Kyoto Protocol was adopted in Kyoto, Japan, in 1997, COP3. There are currently 192 parties. The Kyoto Protocol applies to the 6 greenhouse gases listed in Annex A: carbon dioxide, CO2, methane, CH4, nitrous oxide, N2O, hydrofluorocarbons, HFCs, Perfluorocarbons PFCs. Sulfur hexafluoride SF6. Features of Kyoto Protocol. Principle of common but differentiated responsibilities. It acknowledges that individual countries have different capabilities in combating climate change and therefore puts the obligation to reduce current emissions on developed countries on the basis that they are historically responsible for the current levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. 2 commitment periods, 2008-12 and 2013-2020, Doha Amendment, COP18. Each commitment period has its own binding targets set for developed countries to reduce their GHG emissions. Classification of parties and their commitments. Annex I, legally binding commitments to reduce emissions of greenhouse gases. Includes developed countries, US, UK, Russia etc. Plus economies in transition, EIT, Ukraine, Turkey, some Eastern European countries etc. Annex II, subset of Annex I countries required to provide financial and technical support to the EITs. And developing countries to assist them in reducing their greenhouse gas emissions. Annex B, Annex I parties with first or second round Kyoto greenhouse gas emissions targets. Non-Annex I, no binding targets to reduce GHG emissions. Mostly low-income developing countries. LDCs, least developed countries. No binding targets to reduce GHG emissions. Developing countries may volunteer to become Annex I countries when they are sufficiently developed. Flexible market mechanisms, Kyoto Protocol. Countries bound to Kyoto targets have to meet them largely through domestic action, that is, to reduce their emissions onshore. But they can meet part of their targets through 3 market-based mechanisms like 1. Clean Development Mechanism (CDM) allows a country with an emission reduction or emission limitation commitment under the Kyoto Protocol, Annex B party, to implement an emission reduction project in developing countries. 2. Emission trading, trading of carbon credits. One credit gives the country or a company right to emit 1 ton of CO2. Carbon credits or carbon offsets can be acquired through afforestation, renewable energy, CO2 sequestration, methane capture, buying from an exchange, carbon credits trading, etc. Carbon credits are traded at various exchanges across the world. Multi-commodity Exchange of India (MCX) launched futures trading in carbon credits in 2009. Offset trading, investing some amount of money in such green projects which will emit lesser amount of greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. Joint implementation G allows a country with an emission reduction commitment, Annex B party, to earn emission reduction units (ARUs) from an emission reduction project in another Annex B party, each equivalent to 1 ton of CO2, which can be counted towards meeting its Kyoto target. Question 6. Q. Regarding carbon credits, which one of the following statements is not correct? 2011. The carbon credit system was ratified in conjunction with the Kyoto Protocol. B. Carbon credits are awarded to countries or groups that have reduced greenhouse gases below their emission quota. C. The goal of the carbon credit system is to limit the increase of carbon dioxide emission. D. Carbon credits are traded at a price fixed from time to time by the United Nations Environment Program. Answer D. Question 7. Q. With reference to the agreement of the UNFCCC meeting in Paris in 2015, which of the following statements are correct? 1. The agreement was signed by all the member countries of the UN and it will go into effect in 2017. 2. The agreement aims to limit the greenhouse gas emissions so that the rise in average global temperature by the end of the century does not exceed 2 degrees Celsius or even 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. 3. Developed countries acknowledge their historical responsibility in global warming and committed to donate $1,000 billion a year from 2020 to help developing countries to cope with climate change. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 2016. 1 and 3 only, B, 2 only. C, 2 and 3 only, D, 1, 2 and 3 answer, B. Explanation. Paris Agreement. It is an agreement within the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, dealing with greenhouse gas emissions mitigation, adaptation, and finance, starting in the year 2020. It was negotiated by representatives of 196 state parties at the COP21 at Paris and was adopted by consensus in 2015. The Paris Agreement's long-term goal is to keep the increase in global average temperature to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, and to limit the increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius, since this would substantially reduce the risks and effects of climate change. Contributions each individual country should make to achieve the worldwide goal are determined by all countries individually and are called intended nationally determined contributions, INDCs. Under the agreement, the developed countries reaffirmed the commitment to mobilize $100 billion a year in climate finance by 2020 and agreed to continue mobilizing finance at the level of $100 billion a year until 2025. As of February 2019, 194 states in the European Union have signed the agreement. 184 states in the EU, representing more than 87% of global greenhouse gas emissions, have ratified or acceded to the agreement, including China, the United States and India. Do it yourself. Question 8. Q. The term, intended nationally determined contributions is sometimes seen in the news in the context of 2016. Pledges made by the European countries to rehabilitate refugees from the war-affected Middle East. B. Plan of action outlined by the countries of the world to combat climate change. C. Capital contributed by the member countries in the establishment of Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. D. Plan of action outlined by the countries of the world regarding sustainable development goals. Question 9. Q. Consider the following pairs. Terms sometimes seen in the news, their origin. 1. Annex I countries Cartagena Protocol. 2. Certified Emissions Reductions Nagoya Protocol. 3. Clean Development Mechanism Kyoto Protocol. Which of the pairs given above are correctly matched? 2016. 1 and 2 only, B, 2 and 3 only, C, 3 only. D. 1, 2 and 3 question 10. Q. Consider the following international agreements, 2014 I. 1. The International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture. 2. The United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. 3. The World Heritage Convention. Which of the above have a bearing on the biodiversity? 1 and 2 only, B, 3 only. C. 1 and 3 only, D. 1, 2 and 3 answer, D. Explanation. Convention on Biological Diversity. The Historic Convention on Biological Diversity, Biodiversity Convention, a multilateral treaty, was opened for signature at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in 1992 and entered into force in 1993. The convention called upon all nations to take appropriate measures for conservation of biodiversity and sustainable utilization of its benefits. The convention has 3 main goals. Conservation of biological diversity or biodiversity, sustainable use of its components. Fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from genetic resources. All UN member states, except for the United States, have ratified the treaty. Cartagena Protocol. The Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety is an international treaty governing the movements of living modified organisms, LMOs, resulting from modern biotechnology from one country to another. It seeks to protect biological diversity from the potential risks posed by living modified organisms resulting from modern biotechnology. It was adopted in 2000 and entered into force on the 11th of September 2003. The Nagoya Protocol. The Nagoya Protocol on Access to Genetic Resources and the Fair and Equitable Sharing of Benefits Arising from Their Utilization, also known as the Nagoya Protocol on Access and Benefit Sharing, ABS, is a 2010 supplementary agreement to the CBD. Its aim is the implementation of one of the three objectives of the CBD, the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the utilization of genetic resources, thereby contributing to the conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity. International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture. Popularly known as the International Seed Treaty, it is a comprehensive international agreement in harmony with the Convention on Biological Diversity. It aims at guaranteeing food security through the conservation, exchange and sustainable use of the world's plant genetic resources for food and agriculture, PGRFA, as well as the fair and equitable benefit sharing arising from its use. Question 11. Q. Consider the following statements. 1. The International Solar Alliance was launched at the United Nations Climate Change Conference in 2015. 2. The alliance includes all the member countries of the United Nations. Which of the statements given above are correct? A. 1 only. B. 2 only. C. Both 1 and 2. D. Neither 1 nor 2. Answer A. Explanation. International Solar Alliance. International Solar Alliance (ISA) is conceived as a coalition of solar resource-rich countries to address their special energy needs and will provide a platform to collaborate on addressing the identified gaps through a common, agreed approach. The alliance is a treaty-based intergovernmental organization launched during the COP21 to the UNFCCC at Paris, France in 2015. The ISA framework agreement was opened for signature during the COP22 at Marrakesh on the 15th of November 2016. Out of total of 122 prospective countries, 73 have signed the agreement and 55 countries have ratified it. It is now open to all UN member countries but focuses on the solar resource-rich countries situated between the two tropics. It is headquartered in Gurugram, Haryana. Question 12. Q. Which one of the following is associated with the issue of control and phasing out of the use of ozone-depleting substances? 2015I. A. Bretton Woods Conference. B. Montreal Protocol. C. Kyoto Protocol. D. Nagoya Protocol. Answer B. Explanation. Montreal Protocol. The Montreal Protocol on Substances that Deplete the Ozone Layer is a protocol to the Vienna Convention for the Protection of the Ozone Layer. It is an international treaty designed to protect the ozone layer by phasing out the production of numerous substances that are responsible for ozone depletion. It was agreed on the 16th of September 1987 and entered into force on the 16th of September 1989. The Ozone Treaty is the first universally ratified treaty in United Nations history. Question 13. Q. What is Greenhouse Gas Protocol? 2016. It is an international accounting tool for government and business leaders to understand, quantify, and manage greenhouse gas emissions. B. It is an initiative of the United Nations to offer financial incentives to developing countries to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to adopt eco-friendly technologies. C. It is an intergovernmental agreement ratified by all the member countries of the United Nations to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to specified levels by the year 2022. D. It is one of the multilateral REDD+ initiatives hosted by the World Bank. Answer A. Explanation. Greenhouse Gas Protocol. The Greenhouse Gas GHG establishes comprehensive global standardized frameworks to measure and manage greenhouse gas GHG emissions from private and public sector operations, value chains and mitigation actions. It is developed by World Resources Institute (WRI) and World Business Council on Sustainable Development (WBCSD). Hundreds of companies and organizations around the world are using GHG protocol standards and tools to manage their emissions and become more efficient, resilient, and prosperous organizations. Question 14. Q. Which of the following statements are correct? Proper design and effective implementation of a REDD+ program can significantly contribute to 1. Protection of biodiversity. 2. Resilience of forest ecosystems. 3. Poverty reduction. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 2016. 1 and 2 only. B. 3 only. C. 2 and 3 only. D. 1, 2 and 3. Answer D. Explanation. UNREDD. The United Nations Programme on Reducing Emissions from Deforestation and Forest Degradation, or UNRED program, is a collaborative program of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO, the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, and the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, created in 2008. RED originally referred to Reducing Emissions from Deforestation in Developing Countries, the title of the original document on RED. It was superseded in the negotiations by RED+. UNRED+. Reducing Emissions from Deforestation and Forest Degradation and the Role of Conservation, Sustainable Management of Forests and Enhancement of Forest Carbon Stocks in Developing Countries. RED+ was first negotiated under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, in COP13 at Bali, Indonesia. RED+ goes beyond deforestation and forest degradation and includes the role of conservation, sustainable management of forests and enhancement of forest carbon stocks. RED+ has the potential to simultaneously contribute to climate change mitigation and poverty alleviation, whilst also conserving biodiversity and sustaining vital ecosystem services. Do it yourself. Question 15. Q. Momentum for Change, Climate Neutral Now, is an initiative launched by 2018. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. B. The UNEP Secretariat. C. The UNFCCC Secretariat. D. The World Meteorological Organization. Question 16. Q. Consider the following statements in respect of trade-related analysis of fauna and flora in commerce. Traffic. 1. Traffic is a bureau under United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP. 2. The mission of traffic is to ensure the trade in wild plants and animals is not a threat to the conservation of nature. Which of the above statements are correct? 2017. 1 only. B. 2 only. C. Both 1 and 2. D. Neither 1 nor 2. Answer B. Question 17. Q. With reference to the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, IUCN, and the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, CITES, which of the following statements are correct? 2015I. 1. IUCN is an organ of the United Nations and CITES is an international agreement between governments. 2. IUCN runs thousands of field projects around the world to better manage natural environments. 3. CITES is legally binding on the states that have joined it, but this convention does not take the place of national laws. Select the correct answer using the code given below. 1 only. B. 2 and 3 only. C. 1 and 3 only. D. 1, 2 and 3. Answer D. Explanation. Traffic. Traffic, the Wildlife Trade Monitoring Network, is the leading non-governmental organization working globally on the trade of wild animals and plants in the context of both biodiversity and sustainable development. It was founded in 1976 as a strategic alliance of the Worldwide Fund for Nature, WWF, and the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, IUCN. TRAFFIC's work involves research, publication of influential reports, projects, education, outreach and advocacy on the issue of wildlife trade. Worldwide Fund for Nature. The Worldwide Fund for Nature (WWF) is the world's largest conservation non-governmental organization working in more than 100 countries. It was founded in 1961, working in the field of the wilderness preservation and the reduction of human impact on the environment. The Living Planet Report and Living Planet Index is published every 2 years by WWF. WWF has launched several notable worldwide campaigns including Earth Hour and Debt for Nature Swap, and its current work is organized around these 6 areas: food, climate, freshwater, wildlife, forests, and oceans. IUCN International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources is an international organization working in the field of nature conservation and sustainable use of natural resources. IUCN was established on the 5th of October 1948 in Fontainebleau, France. It is involved in data gathering and analysis, research, field projects, advocacy, and education. IUCN has observer and consultative status of the United Nations and plays a role in the implementation of several international conventions on nature conservation and biodiversity. It was involved in establishing the Worldwide Fund for Nature and the World Conservation Monitoring Center. It produces the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species and the IUCN Red List of Ecosystems. CITES Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, also known as the Washington Convention, is a multilateral treaty to protect endangered plants and animals. The convention was opened for signature in 1973 and CITES entered into force on the 1st of July 1975. Its aim is to ensure that international trade in specimens of wild animals and plants does not threaten the survival of the species in the wild, and it accords varying degrees of protection to more than 35,000 species of animals and plants. Do it yourself. Question 18. Q. Consider the following statements regarding Earth Hour 2014 I. 1. It is an initiative of UNEP and UNESCO. 2. It is a movement in which the participants switch off the lights for 1 hour on a certain day every year. 3. It is a movement to raise the awareness about the climate change and the need to save the planet. Which of the statements given above are correct? A. 1 and 3 only, B. 2 only. C. 2 and 3 only, D. 1, 2 and 3. Question 19. Q. With reference to an organization known as BirdLife International, which of the following statements are correct? 2015I. 1. It is a global partnership of conservation organizations. 2. The concept of biodiversity hotspots originated from this organization. 3. It identifies the sites known, referred to as important bird and biodiversity areas. Select the correct answer using the code given below. A. 1 only. B. 2 and 3 only. C. 1 and 3 only. D. 1, 2 and 3 answer C. Explanation. BirdLife International. BirdLife International, formerly the International Council for Bird Preservation, is a global partnership of conservation organizations that strives to conserve birds, their habitats, and global biodiversity, working with people towards sustainability in the use of natural resources. It is the world's largest partnership of conservation organizations, with over 120 partner organizations. BirdLife International is the official red list authority for birds, for the International Union for Conservation of Nature. BirdLife International has identified more than 1,000 bird species threatened with extinction and has developed conservation strategies for each of them. Important Bird and Biodiversity Areas program is the flagship program of the organization. Bombay Natural History Society is the partner organization in India. Question 20. Q. Biocarbon Fund Initiative for Sustainable Forest Landscapes is managed by the 2015I. A. Asian Development Bank. B. International Monetary Fund. C. United Nations Environment Program. D. World Bank. Answer D. Question 21. Q. With reference to Global Environment Facility, which of the following statements are correct? 2014. A. It serves as financial mechanism for Convention on Biological Diversity and United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. B. It undertakes scientific research on environmental issues at global level. C. It is an agency under OECD to facilitate the transfer of technology and funds to underdeveloped countries with specific aim to protect their environment. D. Both A and B. Answer A. Question 22. Q. Which of the following statements regarding Green Climate Fund are correct? 2015I. 1. It is intended to assist the developing countries in adaptation and mitigation practices to counter climate change. 2. It is founded under the aegis of UNEP, OECD, Asian Development Bank and World Bank. Select the correct answer using the code given below. A. 1 only. B. 2 only. C. Both 1 and 2. D. Neither 1 nor 2 answer A. Explanation. Global Environment Facility. The Global Environment Facility, GEF, was established on the eve of the 1992 Rio Earth Summit to help tackle our planet's most pressing environmental problems. The GEF unites 183 countries in partnership with international institutions, civil society organizations, CSOs, and the private sector to address global environmental issues. GEF provides grants for projects related to biodiversity, climate change, international waters, land degradation, the ozone layer, persistent organic pollutants, POPs, mercury, sustainable forest management, food security, sustainable cities. The GEF also serves as financial mechanism for the following conventions: Convention on Biological Diversity, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, UN Convention to Combat Desertification, UNCCD, Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants, POPs, Minamata Convention on Mercury, Montreal Protocol on Substances that Deplete the Ozone Layer. Green Climate Fund. The Green Climate Fund, GCF, is a fund established within the framework of the UNFCCC as an operating entity of the financial mechanism to assist developing countries in adaptation and mitigation practices to counter climate change. The GCF is based in Incheon, South Korea. It is governed by a board of 24 members and supported by a secretariat. Biocarbon Fund. The Biocarbon Fund Initiative for Sustainable Forest Landscapes, ISFL, is a multilateral fund supported by donor governments Germany, Norway, UK, USA, and managed by the World Bank. It promotes reducing greenhouse gas emissions from the land sector, from deforestation and forest degradation in developing countries, REDD+, and from sustainable agriculture, as well as smarter land use planning, policies and practices. Question 23. Q. Consider the following statements. 1. Climate and Clean Air Coalition, CCAC, to reduce short-lived climate pollutants is a unique initiative of G20 group of countries. 2. The CCAC focuses on methane, black carbon and hydrofluorocarbons. Which of the statements given above are correct? 2017. A. 1 only. B. 2 only. C. Both 1 and 2. D. Neither 1 nor 2 answer B. Explanation. The Climate and Clean Air Coalition. The Climate and Clean Air Coalition is the global effort that unites governments, civil society and private sector, committed to improving air quality and protecting the climate in the next few decades by reducing short-lived climate pollutants, SLCP, across sectors. The coalition's objective is to address short-lived climate pollutants. Its initial focus is on methane, black carbon, and HFCs. Recognizing that mitigating the impacts of short-lived climate pollutants is critical for addressing near-term climate change, the governments of Bangladesh, Canada, Ghana, Mexico, Sweden and the United States, along with the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, came together to initiate the first effort to treat these pollutants as a collective challenge. Do it yourself. Question 24. Q. Consider the following statements. 1. The Sustainable Development Goals were first proposed in 1972 by a global think tank called the Club of Rome. 2. The Sustainable Development Goals have to be achieved by 2030. Which of the statements given above are correct? 2016. A. 1 only. B. 2 only. C. Both 1 and 2. D. Neither 1 nor 2.